first frost of the year, and as much as I would like to deny it, winter is coming. And I'm trying to be prepared because last year after we had an Arctic blast where it didn't get above 0 degrees Fahrenheit for an entire day, stayed well below freezing for multiple days, combined with the big storm that we had this summer that took down tons of trees, knocked out our power, I'm worried because our entire house is electric, everything. So if we lose power, we have no heating or air conditioning, no hot water, and no way to cook. And it's happened in the past, but it's usually been somewhat pleasant weather. If it happens in the winter, I'm kind of afraid of our whole house turning into an ice cube. And in preparing for winter, I'm thinking of it in terms of heating, cooking, and just general electrical use. So that's what I'm going to talk about today, all the things that I've been doing to make sure we're prepared ahead of time before anything happens. And that's of course in addition to all the other things that I need to deal with, like this wheelbarrow and all the other things in my yard. For heat, we have a few options, but the primary one is going to be this heater, a Buddy heater, the Big Buddy by Mr. Heater. And now this heater can run on the small green propane tanks. It can take 2 at a time, but the burn time isn't all that great. In a pinch, it would do. But I've got a connector where I can connect this to large 20-pound propane tanks, and I'm gonna get 2 of those and have them waiting. You definitely don't wanna wait until you have an emergency to go out and get supplies. It's best if you can have some things on hand. Now, do I think that this one heater is going to warm up my 1,500 square foot house and make it nice and toasty? No, it is not. But I'm not trying to recreate life as normal. This is an emergency situation, so I'm just trying to get through it. So this thing will heat up a room or 2 and make it nice and toasty. So we can block off rooms that don't need to be heated and make sure that our house stays warm enough. But we have other options as well. When I was thinking about winter prepping, first I thought about getting a whole house generator. So as soon as the power went off, it would kick on and there would be no disruption whatsoever. But a whole house generator would cost about $10,000 is what I figured. And it didn't make sense for us because eventually I want solar on our roof and a battery backup system. So I didn't want to invest a bunch of money in a backup generator that hopefully will be obsolete in a few years once we have solar. But I just got my first little bit of solar this week, which I'm really excited about, and it plays into our winter prep. And this is a 200-watt solar panel that I got off of Amazon from a company called Bougie RV, which, gotta say, don't love the name, but they're highly rated both on Amazon and reviews I saw on YouTube. But this alone isn't gonna do anything. You need a battery, a charge controller, an inverter to turn it from DC to AC, and I could have purchased all of those and put together a system. But rather than doing that, I decided to go with a Delta 2 from EcoFlow. And this is still part of my heating solution. Yes, we will use this to charge things, but more than anything, I want to use it for an electric blanket at night because I'm worried about running a heater while we're sleeping. You know, you can place it away from anything flammable. It's got a automatic shut off for carbon monoxide, but still, I would worry about running it at night while we're asleep. So I can use the Delta 2 at night running a heated blanket and not have to worry about it. Eventually, we also want to get a wood-burning stove, which would be perfect during a power outage and just generally nice to have. For now, we'll just watch a fireplace on our television, I guess. And because we live in Kentucky, I'm not that worried about snow. I actually made fun of my wife when we moved here and her insistence on buying snow shovels, but she's from Michigan. What we do happen to get a lot of, or somewhat frequently, are ice storms, which are honestly worse. The power lines are above ground, so the ice weighs them down, they snap, and people can go without power for a week or more. This actually happened at my parents' house when I was growing up. Luckily, they have a gas stove, a gas heat, gas logs in their fireplace, so they were okay. It wasn't an enjoyable experience, but they were fine. We wouldn't be. The past few times that we've lost power, it's been somewhat pleasant outside, so I just busted out the charcoal grill and used that, which is something that I could do. But I don't necessarily know how much I would want to stand out there if it was absolutely freezing. We also have a Coleman stove, which is not supposed to be used inside, but in a pinch, well ventilated, I might be tempted to try it in an emergency. As of right now, these really are our means of cooking. I also have another camp stove, and we have a lot of camp meals since we're like going backpacking and hiking, and those only require you to add hot water, so you don't have to expel a lot of energy to get them prepped. And as I've already said, eventually we want a wood burning stove because, well, we've got a lot of fuel. In addition to heating our house, we could also use it to cook. For electricity, I do want to make sure that our deep freeze that is full of meat and vegetables frozen from the summer harvest stays cold if we have a prolonged outage. And for that, I got this generator. Now, I looked at a lot of generators before purchasing this one. I already talked about how I was considering a whole house generator, but I was also looking at essentially the largest portable generator that they make, and thinking that I could get a transfer switch or an interlock so I could connect it directly to my house and power everything in my house. But looking at my energy bills, even the largest generator still wouldn't power everything. I've got a heat pump for heat, and even that, it probably would have struggled. So rather than trying to power my whole house, I was gonna get a smaller generator. And then I started looking at the different types of generators. Now, your big giant generator that you might see at a construction site is not an inverter generator. This is an inverter generator, and make sure that it has a clean sine wave. And this is all stuff that I just recently read about, so I may be getting some of it wrong. But essentially, the electricity wave needs to be very consistent for sensitive electronics. And most of the things that we have in our house are sensitive electronics. And this particular generator is nice because it is a dual fuel generator. So I've got two 5-gallon jerry cans filled with gasoline that have fuel stabilizer in them, and probably over the summer when I'm not so worried about needing the generator, I can just use those in a lawnmower or something else and just keep sure that there's fresh fuel that is no more than 6 months to a year old, but always with fuel stabilizer in it. But at the same time, I can also use those big giant propane tanks. And that is nice because I can use those in the summer if I'm worried about the power going out and wanting to keep things in my refrigerator and freezers. So it's nice to have that dual fuel. And with a generator, if you're going to be powering stuff in your house, you're going to need an extension cord. You're going to need an extension cord to make sure that the generator is far enough away from your house so you're not having fumes come into your house. But when you get an extension cord, you need to get a very beefy extension cord. In general, you shouldn't be plugging in fridges, freezers, and anything that has a large load when it kicks on, like a space heater, air conditioner, refrigerator, freezer, because that big initial draw is a lot for an extension cord. So you need a really, really beefy extension cord. So make sure you get one that is big enough to handle a load like that and long enough. And have that ready. Now, with any of these preps, as I've been talking about, you need to make sure that you have everything ready and on hand. You don't want to be going to a hardware store or a gas station, a grocery store with everybody else if an emergency strikes. Now, I've tried to live a generally minimalist life, or at least I was more so when I was in an apartment in DC, and I've accumulated a lot of stuff since moving to Kentucky. But I'm still trying to only accumulate the stuff that like I really need. And you know, sometimes it's a balance, but this is how I've prepped for the winter. What did I miss? What would you have done differently? Please let me know in a comment down below. And if you want to follow along to see if we have a big giant winter storm and if all this stuff works, be sure to subscribe. My name is Tyler Lloyd. I've been focusing a lot on building my little urban homestead here in my backyard and on my property. If that interests you, or just generally about living a happier, healthier, more sustainable life, which is kind of what I'm going for, subscribe and follow along as I figure it out. All right, see you later. Bye. Good, are you prepared? Are you prepared for the winter? Are you prepared? Yeah? Yeah?